This episode is brought to you by The Science of Scaling. And The Science of Scaling is a podcast that, honestly, you should check out.
Yeah, it's called The Science of Scaling, and it's all about how to scale a business successfully, whether it's how to find outside capital or what to look for in your very first sales hire.
It's a new show hosted by Mark Roberge. She's the best-selling author of The Sales Acceleration Formula. He's also a senior lecturer at Harvard Business School and the founding CRO of HubSpot.
One thing that Mark mentions in the show is whether your company is valued at $1 million, $10 million, $100 million, the failure rate is the same, which means we suck at scaling.
In each episode, you'll hear interviews with people like Kyle Parrish, the VP of Sales at Figma, and Kevin Egan, the head of sales at Atlassian.
I've checked out a few episodes of The Science of Scaling, and it's great. Like, for me, I run a company as a bootstrap company. We're not the kind of company that's raised capital, but even still, things like sales, that's super important, and it's the lifeblood of our company. So for me, it's definitely helpful to hear how other people have sort of, who have been there and done it before, how they're actually approaching scaling. So go on in your favorite podcast app, whatever it might be, and search for The Science of Scaling. That's The Science of Scaling. Check it out. I think you're really going to enjoy it. This episode of Rocketship.fm is sponsored by Industry, the Product Conference. This October, gather with hundreds of product managers and product leaders from all around the world for 2 days of keynote talks, challenging working sessions, interactive discussions, social events, and more. Or add a third day and take part in half-day workshops with some of today's top product management facilitators for workshops on leading your teams to innovation, product roadmaps, achieving product market fit, and more. This year's lineup may be the best yet, with keynote speakers including product legend Marty Kagan. He's the author of the book Inspired, which is considered by many to be the seminal book for product managers and product leaders. There's also product positioning expert and author of Obviously Awesome April Dunford, and product leaders from Figma, IDEO, Amplitude, and so many other places. Plus, if you use the code Rocketship, you'll save $100 off your pass. Visit industryconference.com/global for more details. Again, industryconference/global for more information, but pricing increases on the first of the month, so register soon to save.
So as many of you may know, I ventured out this year. I left my job as the chief product officer at Dribbble to start a brand new company, and that company is gigantic. No, really, that's the name. We're actually very small today, but we are the training institute of the future. And my goal is to help you master the new influential disciplines that are driving results within organizations. And we're starting with some absolutely incredible courses like product leadership taught by Ben Foster, the former CPO at Whoop, deconstructing leadership with Allison Go, formerly of Meta and Amazon. We have revolutionizing marketing with AI, which is taught by Marie Osipova, who is the chief marketing officer at Penny.ai, and an upcoming product management course, which is taught by my co-host, Mike Belcito, along with Anna Marie Clifton of Coinbase and Asana, and Victoria Kennedy, who worked at Axios and Huge, and is now running her own venture capital studio. It's not just video courses. We're combining video lectures with take-home assignments and exercises, and then small group mentorship to really help make this information indelible for you and to help level you up, and all at a cost that most companies' learning and development budget covers. So if you're interested, go to gigantic.is, that's gigantic.is, sign up for a course, and you can actually schedule a call with me, and I'll walk you through everything that you need to know. And if you enroll and let me know that you heard about this on Rocketship, I've got a special discount for you. So go to gigantic.is, sign up today, and start your journey upskilling your product, leadership, and marketing skills. I can't wait to see you there.
Welcome to the Rocketship podcast. I'm Michael Sacca.
I'm Joelle Steiniger.
And I'm Matt Goldman.
And we're having 20-minute talks with entrepreneurs teaching you how to launch your product into revenue.
Check out our book at howtobuildarocketship.com to reserve your launch discount and to download a free chapter.
In today's episode, we talked with Mo Plassnig, co-founder and CEO of Codeship. He talked with us about how their passion for education, teaching through video and blog posts, is really baked into who they are as a company. He also touched on how creating a wow factor in the first couple minutes of using their product has been huge in moving the needle for them. We learned so much from Mo.
We're here with Mo, the co-founder of Codeship. Mo, welcome to the program.
Hello.
So tell us a little bit about, you guys have a fascinating story of starting out Codeship. Tell us a little bit about those early days and how you guys came together as a team.
Yeah, so we were based in Austria, in Vienna. So we are all from Austria. We are a founding team of 3. And we know us through previous work. So I founded a company before, met one of my co-founders there. He worked together with our third co-founder. So we all have worked together before, which was pretty important for us. And we were also really good friends. So it was just logical that since we also have all a different background, that we do something together. Because especially if you look at the problem we are solving, it's really, really important that you have a multidisciplinary founding team, in my opinion. In most of the cases, it just really helps. And so one of my co-founders, Manny, he has design background. He's a great designer. And that's a huge advantage for us. And if you look at our product, you can clearly see that we have a great user experience, a great design. And one of my second co-founder is Flo, who is the CTO, the tech guy. He set up Jenkins a lot in the past. So he had the problem. He is just really, really great engineer, but also shares a lot of really important values with me. So if you look at how we try to educate the market, or how we try to help engineers that have less knowledge about continuous deployment, for example. We do that because of marketing and customer acquisition, of course, but there is also, it is part of our vision, because we want to educate people, we want to share the knowledge we have, because the reason why we are successful at the moment is because a lot of other people helped us and shared their knowledge with us. And as I said, I think, especially for a developer product, it's important to also focus a lot on usability and design. I think it's one of the cornerstones and one of the most important topics, in my opinion. And a lot of people always forget that, because think, okay, it's for engineers, it has to offer a lot of features, a lot of flexibility, but that's not the case. In my opinion, a great product really nails a couple of workflows, really nails the problem. There's a great solution for certain problems. And that also includes a great user experience, because even developers want to use a product that just works out of the box. And I honestly believe that you can hire designers or a team of designers, but your product will never ever have, and your team will never ever have such a huge focus on design if it's not baked into the founding DNA of the company, in my opinion.
So how do you describe Codeship to people who aren't currently doing continuous deployment or testing?
Yeah, so that's pretty simple. So one of the most used products out there is Jenkins, and Jenkins is a great product for certain use cases. But if you are developing software in the GitHub, Amazon, Heroku ecosystem, and you use all those great software as a service tools, then you don't really want to use a product for testing and deploying that is a pain to set up, that takes a couple of hours until it's up and running, that you have to post on your own or run on Amazon, but you have to set it up, configure it. You want to use something that provides you with the same great user experience as GitHub or Amazon and works just out of the box. And so we just mention or often ask people if they use Jenkins and if they are happy with it. And normally the answer is no. It's a pain. It doesn't work. Then you try out Codeship and it works out of the box. You just sign in, you set everything up, and within a minute normally, and it works.
So, or go ahead.
So we've kind of run into the developer mentality a lot, especially with Hookfeed and get the response well, I could build this myself. And I think that's pretty common for a lot of developer products. How do you guys combat that and also get developers to change their workflow and their process to use Codeship when they've been doing things their own way beforehand?
Yeah, so there are definitely engineers out there who think that way. And to be honest, we are focused on the people that use, for example, GitHub. And we are focused at the moment on a certain type of engineer. So somebody, for example, a startup that is in the process of creating their own product or has their own product up and running, they have customers. And they often, at least that is our experience, they often have the mindset that they really want to focus on their core product. And their core product is not running their own Git server. Their core product is not setting up and maintaining Jenkins. So they often understand, or in most of the cases understand, okay, we use a lot of third-party tools to create our product. We don't have to solve everything on our own, because if we do that, we will not be able to focus on the really important points. And the really important points are, as I said, is the core product. It's if you create a marketplace, it's the marketplace. If you create a SaaS product, or if you build a marketing automation software, then it's that. But it's not the testing and deployment infrastructure. It's not the Git server. It's not the monitoring tool. You can use New Relic for it, for example. So we focus on people who think similar, and we try to educate, especially with our content and with our presentation conferences and our meetups. And we try to educate people that they should also think in that way and put like the customer first, try to do what has the biggest positive impact for the customer, and outsource or use other really good solutions for what they don't have to do in-house.
This episode is supported by the AWS Insiders podcast. AWS Insiders is a fast-paced, entertaining, and insightful look behind the scenes of AWS and cloud computing. Hosts Raul Submaranian and Hillary Doyle dig into the current state and the future of AWS by talking with people and companies that know it best. It's a show that's full of opinions, takeaways, and untold stories about the challenges, innovations, and mind-blowing promise of cloud computing. I checked out AWS Insiders, and look, it is a fantastic show, and it's perfect for anyone in tech who's looking for some of those behind-the-scenes stories, for some reassurance that, yeah, things are a little nuts everywhere, and everyone is struggling with a lot of the same problems. The first episode of season 2 is all about filling the cloud talent gap, and it's an interesting discussion on what do we do to help to staff up internally. What are some of the challenges that companies are facing? Search for AWS Insiders in your podcast player. We'll also include a link in the show notes. Thank you to AWS Insiders for their support. This episode is brought to you by Miro. So when I was at Dribbble, over the 6 years, there was one tool that we would always use when we were doing cross-team collaboration. Whenever the collaboration started to get complex, we would bring in Miro. It made it incredibly easy to align stakeholders across regions and time zones, and definitely teams, with ease. And we were able to do all of that while being a completely remote team. It also has integrations into Jira, Azure, Rally, a lot of the tools that you're using already for product management and engineering. So you can import tasks from them as native cards, and it helps you see the big picture. It also helps stakeholders to understand what work needs to be done. It was incredibly valuable. And then they even have an estimation app that gives you a clear understanding of the work scope, lets you identify gaps, and then it has the ability for you to set clear expectations for delivery, especially when you're working across functions. So your first 3 Miro boards are free forever when you sign up today. Go to Miro.com/podcast. That's Miro.com/podcast.
Yeah, and that's why personally I wanted to talk to you, is to learn about that education process, because anyone that follows me on Twitter has probably seen me sing the praises of Codeship. I've been using it for about a year, and before that, all of this was so intimidating to me. I did testing but I didn't have any continuous deployment set up. I'd never tried setting up Jenkins. It just all seemed really complex, and I couldn't see the benefit or value in it. But Codeship is the one that taught me the value before I started using it and made me realize through your simple onboarding and everything how simple it was. This probably sounds like a really bad advertisement, but I want to learn about the hard work that went into that, because it's very hard to educate someone and get them to change their behavior to use your product. And I feel like you guys do that really well.
Yeah, so the education, or that we want to educate the community and other engineers, that was always part of us and how we think and how we want to build the company. In the beginning, we obviously had not enough time, because I think in the beginning it's more important to really build the initial MVP, talk a lot to potential customers and users, put the prototype online, get people to use it, and so on. But as soon as we have done that, we pretty soon, even before we did Techstars, started to write more and more blog posts, even before we were doing it full time, and shared the knowledge we got so far. And it's just part of us as a team, as individuals. We like to share knowledge, and I think there's no way around doing that, because that helps the whole community, either the whole developer community or the local startup community, just to get better. And the onboarding process, I mean, everything we changed, or a lot of the things we changed, were mainly based on feedback from existing customers or users. And so we are still talking a lot to them. We are still doing, or the whole league is doing support every day. And this in a really close contact with the customers, and I think it is necessary, and we don't want to change that. And we also set the bar pretty high, how simple the product should be. And if I look back in the beginning, unfortunately, I mean, there is always this 80-20 thing, and you want to if you have nearly no resources, really small team, you have to focus. And I'm coming back to why focus is that important again and again. You have to focus on your biggest assumptions or your biggest risks. And 2 years ago, the biggest risk was that we were building a product nobody really needs. And so the initial prototype was already simpler than all the other tools out there, but not as simple as we wanted to have it. And it's simpler now, and it has a better user experience, but we are still not happy, not nearly, because there are so many things we could do better, and we're really working hard to make it an even better product, an even simpler product. And that was part of the reason why we raised our Series A round, because we are sure that with more resources we can just do that faster. And what you described, getting people to the first screen build, I think it's really important for every product that you create a wow moment really, really fast. So potential users and customers, they try you out, and what you want to achieve is that within the first couple of minutes, they sit in front of their browser and think, what the fuck is going on? That's so much better than everything else. That's amazing. And I think we are getting better in nailing this wow moment. And there are still a lot of things we have to do, but an improved onboarding process, or the improved onboarding process, was definitely a big step forward.
So when you guys are trying to find that wow moment, what are you guys doing to test your users? Are you talking to them? Are you watching them use the program? Are you trying to find that wow moment with yourself? What does that process look like?
Yeah, so we do all the things you mentioned. I mean, we are using obviously our product every day, but I think we are already in a stage. And I think it's key that you use your own product, but we are already in a stage where we have a lot of customers that have different workflow, or are bigger or smaller, or are not a startup, but maybe a Ruby shop or a freelancer. And so we look at our product in a certain way, and we are really careful in building a product that So we don't want to build a product that only nails our workflow and is only a great product for a company in our stage, because the majority of the customers out there are not like Codeship, obviously. And so we talk a lot to customers. We interact with them a lot. We also, if there is the chance, we invite them to our office in Boston or in Vienna and look over the shoulder and try to understand how they like experience the product. And that's really, really interesting, especially if somebody's trying the product out the first time and you figure out, oh my God, it's still too complex. There are still so many hurdles in it, and we never thought about that this could be confusing. So we try to get as many data points as possible, with many different channels as possible. So interviews, user tests, but also we are super data-driven or data-informed company. So we look also on the data, analyze conversion rates, click-through rates, and so on.
So what is moving the needle on the wow factor? Is it the conversion rate, or what metrics are you looking at to measure that?
So, conversion rates are definitely pointing in the right direction. If you're iterating the onboarding process again and again, and the conversion rate is going up and going up, that is definitely a good sign. It also helps to monitor new users and for example, try to connect the fact that they tweeted about us. Because if they are like, after trying it out only for a couple of minutes, are already so happy that they're recommending us, I think that's a really, really good sign. Because normally you try something out, you get it up and running, play around with it a little bit, and then afterwards you maybe purchase a paid plan and then you recommend it. But we are seeing more and more recommendations coming in right in the first couple of minutes when people are using the product, because I think we're getting better at nailing the wow moment. But overall, so if I would have to pick like one thing, I think talking to customers is still the most important information channel.
So something that you do on your homepage and on the blog is you take the different parts of the deployment process, and that's your code storage like GitHub, the language you're using like Ruby, and the deployment platform like Heroku.
Yeah.
And you take those three, variables, and you write content and record videos that show how to deploy all those using Codeship. So if someone's using Node.js and hosting on Node.jitsu, storing their code on Bitbucket, and they're searching on how to do deploys, Codeship is probably going to come up for that search. So can you talk to the SEO that you guys are doing around that to acquire new customers?
Yeah, so to be honest, we are still really bad with SEO. I think the disadvantage of being so passionate about education and educating the community is that we are doing it because we love doing it and we think it's necessary and it's part of the vision, and we should not just do things that like increase the revenue or help us in getting more customers. We are getting better in doing it in a more like professional way, I would say. So it definitely helps with SEO, obviously. If you Google for how to deploy, as you described it, Bitbucket, do Node.jitsu, you will most probably see one of our blog posts. But we have to, and we are working on that, and we have to get better because a lot of people still don't find a lot of our content, although it's out there, although it's useful, but we just wrote it, put a random headline, and didn't optimize anything. But we are getting better in making the content available easier.
So what else are you doing to acquire new customers? Is it all just organic, people discovering the education resources you're putting out there? Are you doing advertising? How's that work?
Yeah, so we are doing a little bit of paid online marketing, but it's not like a really big channel, and I assume it will never be because developers like to ask their colleagues and peers, okay, what are you using? Or they go to meetups and talk to people, or they see a presentation at a conference, or they read a great blog article. So everything around content, everything around building a thought leadership and educating the market definitely helps, especially in the long run. We are attending a lot of meetups. We're sponsoring a lot of meetups, especially in Vienna and also in Boston, because we want to, especially where we are located, help the local startup community and developer community. And then word of mouth is super, super important because people, as I said, recommend us. If you look at Twitter, or if you look for or search for Codeship at Twitter, I'm pretty sure if within the first 5 or 10 tweets, there are already a couple of recommendations. And what we have seen, especially in the last months, is that a lot of people are asking on Twitter what CI tool they should use, and our customers or users proactively recommend Codeship, and that's something really nice. And I mean, from a customer acquisition point of view, it's amazing because we don't have to do anything. And me as a founder and builder of a product makes it just really, really happy if people who are using and paying us every day or paying us every month recommend us that way.
We'll be right back after a quick word from our sponsors. Now, back to the show.
And you are all originally from Vienna, right? And you made your way over to Boston eventually?
Yeah. So yes, we are, all from Vienna, or at least, so my two co-founders were born there, lived there. I moved there a couple of years ago and lived for 3 or 4 years in Vienna. And I consider Vienna as home, or Boston now, most probably. And we will keep our office there. So it's a huge advantage because there's great engineering talent available in Europe. And we have our own network there. We know a lot of people there. And there is no reason why we should start or try to hire engineers in Boston or in San Francisco or somewhere else in the States, where it's just so much harder and really good people are just so much more expensive and not as loyal as people in Europe. So it's a great advantage if you have your own network there and if you have still a really close relationship with a lot of people there. And we don't want to give up that advantage. But nevertheless, Boston is really important for us. The US is really important for us. And in the long run, more people will be based in Boston. And we're hiring in Boston and Vienna at the moment. And are also happy to relocate people from Europe to Vienna, from Europe to Boston. But it's just hard in terms of getting a work visa. But we at least offer that to all of our employees.
And you originally came to Boston because of Techstars, right?
Yeah, so when we decided to do it full time, it was clear, and it was part of the decision, we have to move to the States or at least open an office there. And since the team back then was pretty small, so 3 founders, and by the time when we moved to the States, we were 5 overall. It was clear that everybody has to move because you don't want to deal with remote people, do offices with a really, really early stage company that is still trying to nail the product. It's just easier if everybody's in the same room. And Techstars, especially Techstars Boston, was just perfect in terms of timing to move to the US, because we would have been way slower in moving, getting a network, and so on without Techstars. And it was definitely the right decision. It was worth it. And Boston is, in my opinion, a great place to build a company, and you don't have to be based in San Francisco to build something.
So a lot of the people that are listening are bootstrappers, some are funded. What would you say for people that are, running smaller operations, the big advantage of doing Techstars was?
So I am, to be honest, really skeptical about accelerator programs because they're popping up all over the world. And I think the majority of accelerator programs are not good. And then there are a few like Techstars or like Y Combinator or Seedcamp or 500 startups that are really good and have a great network and are run by smart people who founded companies on their own and invested in companies on their own. And my suggestion is that you take a really close look on where you want to be based in the long run And if that is Seattle for whatever reason, or if that is San Francisco or Boston, then take an accelerator program that is based there if it's one of the really good ones. Because it makes no sense to like move to Boston for 3 months and then go back to Europe. And then you have the network in the US, but if you don't like stay there and continue building the relationships, you won't get anything out of it. So that's definitely important. And then you also have to think or analyze how those accelerator programs are structured. They're all different, and they're all great brands, but YC is different to Dexter's. And the different programs have different advantages and disadvantages. And there is, in our case, the best fit was with Dexter's, because Dexter's is, or when we did it, they took a pretty small class. So there were 14 teams. And the Dexter's team and all the mentors, they helped us a lot. And they spent a lot of time with the whole team, with the founders, with the CEO. So it wasn't just about meeting a lot of people, but it was about getting better as founders or getting better as executives, and being able to not just run a startup that has 5 people, but also be able to make the next step and raise a bigger round, and then be able to manage a team that has 20 or 50 people. And that was especially important for us. And they were really helpful. And I think an accelerator program or mentors can only be helpful with that if they spend a lot of time with you, because they have to mentor you, they have to see your progress, they have to understand what is going on in your startup. And that's not possible if you meet them like once a month or once a week, in my opinion. And I would not be too excited about accelerator programs just because you read a lot about them and you hear all the stories and read a lot about all those startups who did it and raised a lot of money afterwards. I mean, at the end of the day, you have to do the work and you have to build your company. And they open a lot of doors, but you have to walk through them, and you have to decide through which doors you have to walk and through which not. So you also have to ignore a lot of advice. That's really important.
That's great.
Yeah, so just as a kind of final wrap up question, what is something, if you were starting again today, that you would have done differently, looking back and taking in all the lessons that you've learned from the last year?
Focus.
So where were you guys unfocused?
So we started it. So focus is one, and then trust in your gut feeling. So when we started it with the initial prototype, we started it a long time ago, but did it as a side project for 1 or 2 years because we were not confident enough in jumping in full time. We were not getting enough positive feedback, which was, or the main reason was that we were based in Austria, in Vienna, and the people there were not, there is not a big startup community there. There are no developer tools. We built in a bus in Vienna, so there's not a lot of experience around the topic, and people were just not really excited about a better continuous deployment tool. While in the US, there were already a lot of people analyzing the market, investing into the market. So we should have focused on doing it full time way earlier, or at least move for a certain time period to a place where we would have got better feedback.
What was distracting you back then?
Fun. So that's one point. That's the point why you should trust your gut feeling. If you think you have a great idea, it's important to get a lot of feedback and think about it and implement some of the feedback. But as I said before, it's important to ignore a lot of the feedback, and it's a thin line between ignoring and not ignoring. And that's one of the most important things you have to learn as a founder, or especially as a founder CEO. And the earlier you learn that, the better. And that focus, so our problem was that we did it as a side project. That means we were doing other things. I was running a different company. The co-founders were working in different jobs. And it was just especially for me, just stupid to build another product in parallel to building a startup. And I will never ever do that again. And that maybe explains why I'm so focused on like only doing a few things and doing them really, really good, and then do the next things.
Yeah, I love how that's translated directly into your product that you're building.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to learn from your mistakes.
Absolutely. I think we've all done it at some extent too. Well, thank you so much for coming on here today and sharing your insight. Where can we keep up with you and Codeship's development?
So first of all, thanks for having me. Just follow us on Twitter. I'm happy to help it's hard to help every startup, but if somebody has any questions, if somebody wants to know more about, Codeship, how we did certain things, or for example, Techstars, I'm more than happy to help. Just follow me on Twitter, tweet something. I'm happy to do a quick call.
Well, that is an open introduction. So if you can take advantage of that, that's amazing.
Sweet. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Rocketship podcast. If you haven't yet, pop open iTunes and subscribe to be notified of future episodes. We have some really great ones lined up.
And while you're there, leave us a review. We really appreciate each and every one of them.
It's a numbers game, but shit don't add up somehow. Like I got 16 to 32 balls to rock it, but only 15% of profits. Ever seen my pockets like 69 billion in the last 20 years spent on national defense, but folks still live in fear like nearly half of America's largest cities is 1/4 black. That's why they gave Ricky Ross all the crack. 16 ounces to a pound, 20 more to a key. A 5-minute sentence hearing and you're no longer free. 40% of Americans own a cell phone so they can hear everything that you say when you ain't home. I guess Michael Jackson was right. You are not alone. Rock your hard hat black cause you in the terror dome full of hard niggas, large niggas, dice tumblers.
Hey guys, welcome to The Collective. I'm Brianne Helfrich, a 26-year-old bioethics PhD student and clothing brand CEO. Welcome to my podcast where we talk all things health and wellness, navigating your 20s, and becoming the best version of yourself. So, sit down, play that episode, and join the collective.
Hey, this is Mary Beth Lassiter. Are you craving a new podcast? I've got a recommendation. Check out Gravy, the James Beard award-winning podcast that shares stories of the changing American South, brought to you through the foods we eat. It's produced by the Southern Foodways Alliance and distributed by APT Podcast Studios. Listen to Gravy on your porch during happy hour to hear about the mystery of the missing Pappy Van Winkle bourbon. Don't miss out. Follow Gravy wherever you get your podcasts.